Here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Spiritually Speaking. I have a beautiful guest with me today. This is Becc Nelson. She is a psychic medium. She is a licensed therapist, and she is also the author of the book named Cut the Shit. She's going to tell us all about it. Welcome, Becc. So nice to have you.
Oh, thanks for having me, Dee.
You're very
Glad to be a
welcome.
part of your audience.
Yeah, and we were chatting just prior to coming on that your book has actually already won an award. So if you'd like to tell us about that, that would be awesome.
Oh, I got to bring up the information again because it's a mouthful. I thank you for saying that. My book has been out for 2 years now, so I probably need to start writing another one at this point. But I just found out that it won. I'm going to read this to you because it won with the International Impact Book Awards. It won in the category of mind, body, and spirit, mindfulness, and emotional resilience.
That is so awesome. Congratulations. I'm so excited for you. I thought the audience needed to know that.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I want to say it loud and proud.
Yes, absolutely. So tell us a little bit about yourself, about your journey, and about your book. And wait, before we go into that, I just want to tell people the really super cool way that I even knew you existed on this planet because
Right?
the universe showed you to me in the most interesting and fun way. So I don't know if anyone out there listening, I'm sure you have heard of the comedian Matt Rife. He's absolutely hilarious. And he does these reels on, you'll see them all over social media, they're everywhere. And in the reel, ta-da, there was Becc, and he was talking to her about her, or she was talking to him. They were talking to each other about her book, the fact that she's a licensed therapist and a medium. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've got to get in touch with this woman. And I Googled her, and ta-da, Becc, here we are now. It was amazing.
I know it really was amazing. I think the whole experience is a testament to how spirit really works. That when your energies are aligned, then things will be brought into your energy field that are
Yes.
consistent with where you're at energetically. And before that, so Matt was had come into town and he was at a local place near my house, and it's just, when I say it's a small place, and it seats about 250 people, the Comedy Connection. And in Rhode Island, where I live, where he consequently also bought a house recently. And I'm sure I'll never actually see him out and about at Stop and Shop, but but
Maybe you will, though.
before we you never know. I mean, does he do his own shopping? But I got a notification from the Comedy Connection saying that he was coming into town and he was doing 4 shows in 2 days. And the Comedy Connection, like I said, is only 250 people. So I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool. So I went in to try to get tickets. And the first time I went in to get the tickets, it said they were sold out. I mean, I'm talking about within 15 minutes of them getting put up.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I'll try again. And when I tried the second time, I actually got the tickets to one of the shows, and they were really not expensive at all. They were maybe $50 a person. And so we got into the show for like $100 for my husband and I. And I said, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go, because sometimes when they have those small venues, they will allow you sort of a meet and greet where you can meet them, you stand in line and do like a picture with them and stuff. Because we've been to a bunch of shows there. I'm like, I'm going to take my book, and then we're going to see if they do a meet and greet. And if they do, then I'm going to try to get a picture of me and Matt Rife. And I'll be like, me and Matt Rife cutting the shit. But that didn't happen. That did not happen. This was last April. In fact, they would not even let us take out our phones. If you took out your phone, it would throw you out. But I had my book in front of me, and the woman next to me said, "Oh, tell me what's that all about?" And I kind of told her what I was hoping to do. Well, he comes on stage, and we weren't even allowed to, like I said, take out our phones. And so I couldn't take any pictures of him. But he starts off by saying that he was trying to, what we didn't know at the time was that he was taping for a special, or trying to do some promos for a special he was doing that actually has since then come out on Netflix over the summer. And he says, this is all impromptu. So I don't have a script for today. I just want to know, like, who here has a dream? And the woman next to me took my arm and put it up in the air. Right. And he's like, oh, yeah, you have a dream. And that's where the whole interaction that you see on that he first put up on TikTok. That's the whole interaction between him and I from that point on. And the one that he put up. Now, I had no idea that his staff was taping it, because they must have had little something that they were taping with. So we had no idea. And, my husband and I were like, oh, this is really cool, because he was sitting across from me. But so at the end, I'm like, okay, that was great. And like everybody he held it up and said the name of the book in front of these 250 people. And I'm like, all right, that's cool. It just got out in front of 250 people who are here, but nothing had come of it. Like I said, it was in April, and we didn't get to do a meet and greet. We didn't even get to do a picture. I didn't get to shake hands with them or anything like that past the interaction that we had. So fast forward to this past August, when one of my clients messaged me and said, hey, is it going to cost me more money to see you now? Like, are you going to be too popular to see me? Ha ha ha. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Because I didn't have TikTok. And she showed me the link. Then I had to sign up for TikTok, and I was like, oh my God. It was 8 minutes long. And I of course showed it to my husband and that kind of thing. And I realized, he had, like I said, started that segment by saying, does anybody have a dream? And I was saying, my dream is I want to do more speaking engagements. I want to be, known as a healer, a spiritual mentor. And I'm pondering it afterwards. Like, he actually gave me my dream by
Yeah.
doing that, because, I find you, and, I have gotten messages from a lot of people, some who follow through, some who don't. I've sold a lot of books. I've made some decent money in royalties, particularly in August, and it's been kind of trickling on since then. And I'm thinking, that's really how the universe works. When you
Yeah.
put something out there, it may not necessarily be the way that you put it out there in your head, but
Yeah.
it'll be the way that it's supposed to be. And what a great example of that. And I'm so grateful to him for having put that out there, because really he kind of put me on the map, and helped me to find people like you. So I'm really grateful for that.
Yeah, it's such a cool story. I mean, it really is such a cool story. And I'm excited. Like, I'm totally emailing him. I'm just gonna put this out here on this, so when he watches this video, he's gonna hear me say it. I'm totally gonna email him and send him the link for this when it drops, so that he can see what a catalyst he has been in your life, because I think that is so amazing that here he is just doing what he does in his comedy routine, and then realizing the impact that he has had on your spiritual journey, and what a catalyst he has been to get you out there for other people. Now, he did do that, but he didn't do it by himself, because you put that out there into the ether. It's just the universe showed you this really cool way that it was going to happen that you could have never come up with ever, you know?
Right. I mean, who knew? I kind of dropped. I just thought, hey, that was really cool that I got it out there to 250 people that night.
Yeah.
But when it came out in August,
Yeah. And
and I'm
it's
so
still
grateful that
expanding.
I'm still getting messages. I mean, it's
Yeah.
trickling in, and I'm still selling more books and that sort of thing. So I'm so grateful for that. But I think that it's such a great example of how the universe works, and then brings other people into your field.
Yeah. It's so incredible. It's so incredible. I'm like, I get so impressed by spirit. I love spirit so much, because it just comes up with the coolest ways to make things happen, that just, it leaves no doubt in your mind, because you're like, you can't make this shit up. You know what I mean? You just
Mm-hmm.
can't make it up. I mean, if we both like got together and sat down prior to this happening, and brainstormed on what is the coolest way that this could possibly happen, neither one of us would have ever come up with, you're going to be on a reel of Matt Rife comedy genius right now, and you're just going to expand exponentially. We would have never come up with that.
What I loved about it at the time is, like, if you watch it, he was fascinated. Actually, so I didn't know as much about him then as I do now, but I didn't realize that he was really into, I guess he had lost his grandfather, who was very important to him. And I, at the time, did not know that. So he was fascinated with, can you get me a message from my grandfather? And he just kept asking me all these questions, to the point where I think the other people in the audience were like, can we move on from this lady? So, I mean, there were people that were like, oh, she's, trying to give him readings, and that's really generic and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I never said in the beginning that my dream was to give Matt Rife readings. That's not what
Right.
I came here for. But that just kind of happened to be the way that it unfolded. I mean, I would love to be able to connect with him, because I did write a very personal message to him in the inside of the book. So I hope. if you're listening, Matt, I hope that you read it and it did impact you. I would love to hear it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That'd be
I
so cool.
know.
Yeah. And I'm down with having you both on. Like if when he reads this and sees this and he wants to come on and have like a three-way conversation, not that kind. I know the kind of comedy you do, Matt. That is not what I meant. Just a conversation. Just to be clear, that would be super fun. I'm open to that. So we'll see what happens. Oh my goodness. I mean,
But thank you for asking about it. And, I think that people also think that you need to be somebody special and whatever to have these things happen. I mean, that's earlier in my spiritual journey, I would think that like these things can't happen for me. I'm not
right.
special enough or I'm not powerful enough. And no, everybody is. We're
That's
all
right.
able to do that. And that's
Yeah.
a message that I want to let everybody know too.
Yeah. It's so true. It's very true. We are all capable of bringing these amazing experiences into our lives. We just have to allow ourselves to get into flow and allow that alignment to just happen instead of putting all that fear and doubt into it. So that's really what it takes.
And then letting go of the control of the
Yeah,
how. Right.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. For sure. Well, tell us a little bit about your backstory and how you came to do the things you do and be where you are in your life right now.
Well, I've always kind of known that my purpose here was to serve people, and it was, that's taken many forms over the years, but I always, I've always been a therapist or a helper. um and I've been doing this work for about 30 years now, which is a really scary number. I think it dates us, right? How many years that is, don't do the math, anybody. But adding the spirituality piece, that was maybe somewhere around COVID where I finally embraced it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll try to make like a very big story because it's a lifelong story, a lifelong journey. um I have an uncle who's in spirit who died when I was 17. My dad's next brother, second down brother, he died in the VA in the late 80s. And ever since he died, I started kind of getting messages from him, what I now recognize as messages from him. And some of the highlights of that, because he was a very out there kind of person, he would not be ignored, and certainly not in death was he ignored either. Um, but when I would be in doing a therapy session, and one time I had a couple, and the couple started talking, the man started talking about his time in Vietnam and how he had this guy in his platoon and he was a funny son of a bitch, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, why is he talking about Vietnam? Like, we were doing a couple session, like it had nothing to do with, Vietnam in the 70s or late 60s, right? And I'm like, why is he talking about this? So I'm just taking notes. And he starts talking about this funny son of a bitch that he was in. And I realize as he's talking, the more and more he's talking, that it's my uncle. And I kind of stopped, and I remember looking up at him, and he's like, oh, his name was Danny, but I can't remember his last name. And I just went, like, I remember that moment, like, damn. And I said his last name, and he was like, how did you know that? And I said, I think you're talking about my uncle. And wow, like, the him and his wife and we all were like, what just happened? And I knew that that was one of the times that he got very loud. But, again, there's a myth that if you ask spirit to come in, that they will get louder and that they will wake you up at night, and which, they can do. But, also there's other things that they don't say, that you're not told, which is that you can tell them to come back in the morning, and,
That's right.
all these things.
Yeah.
So at the time, I didn't want to be the weird kid. I already am weird enough, right? So I didn't want to be more weird by having this happen. So I just kept blocking it. Every time something like that happened, I was like, nope, nope, nope. So the time that he got the loudest was, my husband and I had come back from a trip, and for our 25th wedding anniversary, and this was back in 2018. We have a detached garage. So my husband went into the garage when we got home, and he rolled open the barn door, and it was this huge chair in front of the door. And this is a story I tell in my book, and the picture is in the book as well. So my husband opens the door. There's this huge chair in there, like that you would put behind your desk in an office. And my husband was going to fix it for years, and it was kind of buried. Well, he opens the door, and the chair is sitting right in front of the door. Now I'm in the house. I'm getting ready to go to grocery shopping because we had been out away. And he texts me a picture of the chair and says, "Did you move this chair here?" And I knew right away that it was something wonky. And I said, no. And I erased the picture and I went to BJ's. So I'm at BJ's and this woman stops me while I'm in the frozen food section. And she's like, "Excuse me, I don't know if you believe this or not, but there's a guy standing next to you and he's jumping up and down." And she describes him to a T, right? Because he's kind of shorter. He's like, kind of swearing and like jumping up and down. And she's like, and he's mad. She said, he has said he's been trying to get your attention. He's doing everything he can, and you are ignoring him. And he's had. Now I'm just kind of like, what's happening? Right. I have never met this woman before in my life. I've never seen her since. And I look over at her husband, and her husband's like this. And I was like, she does this all the time, huh? And he goes, she describes him to a T. And then she starts describing the incident that had happened between my husband and I. She's like, "Oh my God," this woman was very gifted. She said, "Oh my God," he said he moved something. Wow, that took a lot of energy. He moved, oh my God, he moved a chair." And she's describing the whole incident. And then she goes, "And then he said, you erased the picture and didn't even talk." She goes, "He is done with you." So, I mean, I I was literally just grocery shopping. I was not expecting this at all. And wow. So I don't even remember checking out. I don't remember driving home. I had this conversation with my husband. I think the other thing is that he brought my husband into this too, which kind of made it so that now I'm not the only person that it happened to. Like he saw it too.
Right. Irrefutable evidence.
So from Yeah. So from then on, I was like, okay, fine. And that's when so that was 2018. That's when I really kind of allowed myself to be open to the experiences and then started to learn more boundaries with them and that sort of thing and have it be a little less scary. That doesn't mean I'm not the weird person, but I just sort of live with it because that's just how it is.
Mhm.
The picture that my husband sent that day, years later, I was, we of course, when I was writing the book, I was talking about it. I'm like, oh, I wish I still had that picture because that was really cool. And he goes, I have the picture. He's like, I will never erase that. Like that was the coolest thing ever. So that's why the picture is in the book because he was not having it. Now,
That is
since
so cool.
then, since then, my uncle has sent me on many an adventure, which is probably something I got to put in another book that are
Yeah.
equally as cool. But like a whole list of synchronicities. And at this point, my husband just goes, "If you tell me we have to go do something, then we have to go do something." Like, I'm just not going to question it anymore. There have been too many things where he's like, "Oh, okay, we're just doing that." That's, because you just got to trust, right?
Yeah.
But also have to open up your energy to it. So it's really since then that I started to become more curious about it and learn more and make better boundaries and then learn how to guide other people in that journey that were in the same place that I was in, that were might be more fearful, and learning how it can actually really enhance the quality of your life. And then also to combine that with the work that I do with mental health, spiritual mental health under the same roof, which is, people will say, how is that different than the work that you did as a therapist? Honestly, it's, for me personally, it's never really been that different because the work that I do with people is always how I would work with people anyway.
Hmm.
So it's just more knowledge. It's just more opportunities for healing, some outlets that people that I didn't know before that I've incorporated. But really, the work that I do has always just been me under that same umbrella.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. Because that was like your soul has known all along. It just took your human self a little bit of time to catch up to it. So that's really cool.
And to be open to it, yes,
And to be open
for
to it.
sure.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because it is like I've been able to see spirit since I was a small child. So I never had that fear factor that you were talking about. But I did have to learn more boundaries, which I feel like I kind of learned that naturally. So what helped you learn those boundaries? How did you come to understand that you even needed to do that?
Well, I remember around the time, so like I said, it was 2018 when that happened with my Uncle Danny, and I was sort of floundering and on my own with it for a good 2 years. The year that COVID happened, two really important things happened. One is, again, around 2018, I had a client that brought me my first Oracle deck. Actually, it's sitting right here, right? This is a deck by, it's a Saints and Angels Oracle deck by Doreen Virtue. It's no longer even in print. And she gave this to me in a package, in a present. And again, I was not open to it. So I was like, oh, great, thanks. And I left it in the bag. It was still in the original gift bag. I shoved it in a closet in my house, going back many years now. And I had not taken it out because I was worried. I didn't know I was not educated enough on it. So at that time, so then COVID happened. At that time, there was 3 weeks where we were not open. We could not provide services. And I remember thinking, I was in my house and my husband was working here too, out of the house at the time. And I remember thinking, like, I can't, our job, because I have a company that we had about 9 other people working underneath me at the time. And I said, this is a lot and people need our services more than ever. And I can't lead this company and help people from the comfort of my home. I really need to get back to my office.
Right.
So, and I'm sure that's a turning point for a lot of people at that point. So now we're talking about April of that year. And that day I said to my husband, I don't care. I'll bring a mask, but I'm opening our office. People, their phones ringing off the hook. We need to go and help.
Right.
We need to be on the front lines. So, and that day I said, today is the day that those cards are coming out of that bag. And I had them for years. I don't know what made me think that today was the day, but I went up before I left. I was going into my car and I was like, I need to bring these cards with me. And I did. I went up and they're now my, constant companion. This is my go-to deck. But I didn't know what I was doing with them, but I just started offering people some guidance from the cards. And it just kind of started to flow. I can't even describe it to you. And I can't even describe to you how I knew that was the day that they needed to come out and I wasn't going to be afraid anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
So that was
amazing.
like, that was like April or the beginning of April when it was like we were 3 weeks into that. And then I just kind of started saying, I would always be somebody who prayed. And I just asked for the resources to assist me on this journey.
Mm-hmm.
And in October or probably September, I do have several friends who are psychic mediums that I was like, oh, I wish I could do that. Right. And, woo. Because usually when you see it in somebody else and you get excited about it, it means it's probably in you too. But I didn't see that at the time. I was like, I wish I could do that. So one of my friends was doing some kind of coordinated effort with a woman who was like having the whole month of October and had, I think, 5 or 6. I probably should repeat this so other people would probably love this, right? That she had 5 or 6 people under her, and all these people were doing different workshops for like the whole month of October that year. And my friend Debbie, she did one on reading Oracle decks, and so I was like, this is perfect. But then there were a bunch of other people were doing a lot of other classes like clearing your energy, cutting cords, crystals, mediumship. Everybody kind of took a turn and everybody had offered a different workshop. And there was a group of, I'm going to say about 10 of us that are still, most of us still talk today, that started their journey that place. But I think the biggest thing that I would like people to take away is like, ask for what you want. And I said, I need the resources to be able to understand this. And I think now I know it's important to say things like resources, because if you get very specific, like I need the money for this,
Right.
That's just one type of resource. No, put it out there that you want people, places, experiences, yes,
Yeah.
and money for that too, to be able to have these opportunities. So that's where I really started to understand what was happening and make the connections. And then, you have classes and you hear other people's experiences and you're like, wow, like it just validates all the things that you're going through. So you really do need other people around you. That's very helpful. People to guide you, other people to share their own experiences. That's
Yeah.
an important part of it.
I feel that way too. And I didn't realize that for a really long time. And it's more and more stuff is coming in for me as well right now. Like it's amazing. Like, it's so incredible. I'm so amazed and excited. I read a meme not too long ago that said, if you can accomplish your dream without the assistance of other people, you're not dreaming big enough. And I was like, wow, that is such a powerful statement, you know? It really is. And we're not all meant to have these big, huge dreams. Sometimes our big dream can be a lot more toned down than that. And that's okay. Everybody has their big dream in their own way. And it's such a beautiful thing. But if you are someone who has one of these dreams that's so big like that, then it is important to realize you're not getting there by yourself. We all have to have those people that are adjunct creators in our dream.
So to be able to ask in your prayers or your manifestations, whatever you want to call them, for the right resources, the right people, the right experiences,
Yes.
then they'll bring them to you.
Yeah. In the most amazing ways, right?
Right, Dave? This conversation is a great example of that.
It is, absolutely. So I would like for you to talk a little bit more about your book, if you don't mind. Like, how did you come up with the title Cut the Shit? What does that mean to you? What can that mean for others? Because I love it because it's so like to the point.
Well, that is exactly what Matt Rife said, to the point. So this same mentor that I was telling you about, Michelle, who's the one who hosted this gathering that when I first got attended, I still am in contact with her, and she's written several of her own books. I did some work with her individually too at the time, and I remember in my head on many of occasions saying to some of my clients, "Oh, I have several books playing out in my head," right? And I had never put them out there onto paper. So they were all books I was writing in my head, and they had various subjects and titles. So I was talking with Michelle one day, and I was like, what I heard in my head, which I now know is spirit, your intuition talking to you. So pay attention to those nudges. Because I was telling her about one of my ideas, and spirit said, "When are you going to write these down?" And I think that that was an important. I mean, I need to. I even repeat that to myself now. You need to kind of journal them, even if it's like each page has a different book that I want to write, and then kind of start to raise the energy of those thoughts of whatever that book is. So each page has like a different, this is the book I'm going to write about such and such. So this particular book, I call them the rules, and it's based on patterns that I was seeing with my clients. And every time I would see this pattern happen again, I'd be like, "Oh, yep, that's the such," and I'd kind of, name them in my head, that this particular pattern. And that's when I heard the, "Why don't you write these down?" And I'm like, you know what? I've never actually written them down to see how many of them are there and that sort of thing, to see, because now I know that spirit brought these to me and made me aware of them so that I could. So spirit co-authored this book with me. So I started to write them down. And when I wrote them down formally, I think at first there were 12 of them. Now there's 14. So I sat down with Michelle, and I was doing one of my mentoring sessions with her, and I said, "Just let me, here's like some things that I wrote down, and I want you to tell me what you think of them. Just give me a minute. I'm just going to say them all." So I went down. It was, nothing formal. I just read everything that I had about all these patterns. And she was quiet for a minute. Now she's from Texas, so she has a little twang to her voice. And she after a second, she said, "Wow, I need to do some of these at my house." And I remember, like, that was really important to me, because my energy just went like, here's somebody that I'm looking to for guidance, and she's saying to me, I could learn from these.
Yeah.
So to me, it was, I just felt the energy of them in that day. And then again, I asked for resources. So, over time, I had met more and more people. I met a woman who did end up being my book coach. Her name is Shanda. She's from Transcendent Publishing. And I did have some COVID money, and I used it to hire her. And she helped me through, she walked me through the whole process of writing this book. Um, I loved the accountability of it. She would just meet with me and say, "Okay, this is what we're going to do. By the next time we meet in 2 weeks, do you think you could have one more chapter done? Or do you think you could increase this chapter to this many pages, or to this many words, or whatever?" She walked me through the whole thing. And I'm not going to tell you it wasn't hard. It probably took me the better part of a year. And that same year, my father was dying. So there was a lot going on that year. But it really, again, I asked for the right resources, and she came. And the who knew that we were going to get some money from the government for to help to assist us through this hard time for the business, and that really helped for resources. Like everything just sort of fell together. Now I need to get into the next book, right? And this is a reminder to me too, because I forgot about that piece of how important it was for me to write it down, because that really gave it the energy. And it also reminded me of some of the things that when you think, oh, I'm never going to be able to organize this, it really helped to organize it by just writing it down. That's how I started.
Yeah, that's awesome. That is awesome. So the cut the shit part of it, is that like, is,
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, you did ask
yeah,
that. You did ask that.
that's
So,
okay.
what I think the people who are the best healers are the ones who have gone through the experiences themselves,
Mhm.
so that they can then teach those lessons to other people with sincerity, because they've
Yes.
done it themselves. So I had to learn, particularly during the time of COVID, when I felt like my business is falling apart and I'm not getting new help, and how am I going to blah blah blah, like when you all those doubts come in. What I needed to remember is to cut the shit. That it's easy to say that everything that's happening in your life is other people's problem or
Oh
other
yeah.
people's faults. Like,
Yes.
if my husband would just, if these, the people who, if this woman who works for me would just, like, the pattern is, if everybody else would just do what I want, then my life will be better. And what
Right.
I was not understanding at the time was that I was giving other people the power for me to be happy,
Yes.
which of course is a losing battle. It's sabotaging yourself, because that's never going to work.
Right.
You can't make somebody else change to make you happy. You have to make yourself happy. And so I had to make a decision at that point to cut the shit, to stop blaming everybody else, to take responsibility for my
Mhm.
own thoughts and actions. And I, so when I called it cut the shit, this is again an ongoing conversation I had with the book coach, because, should I put a book out there with a swear on the cover? Because there are certain bookstores that won't put it on their shelves because of it. And she was like, well, you could put, a little sticker with an asterisk in the eye or whatever. Because she had shown me other books with similar covers where they did something like that. And I was like, I really want the energy of cut the shit. So
Yeah.
if someone's not going to put my book or get my book because there's a swear on it or whatever, then you may not be blessed by that title. It's the energy is pull yourself up, take responsibility, take take your power back
Yeah.
and make the changes yourself. And when you see that, when you do that for yourself, you start to bring in the energy of other people who want the same things. Again, that like for like energy. And yes, other people may slough off, but that's okay. Your time with them is done, and the right people will come into your field.
Yes. A hundred
So for
percent.
me, it was like that slap in the face that said, knock it off. Stop giving your power away.
Yes.
So I
Yes.
wanted that energy.
I love that, because we do that as humans, don't we? Like we make everyone else so, I hate to call it victim mentality, but that's what it's almost like, you know? And we can take our power. We have that. We're really the only ones who do have power over our lives. We really are. So I love that you bring that up. And I love also going back to what you said about your conversation with the beautiful Texan lady that you were chatting with, that you were teaching her. And I think it's really important for us, no matter where we are in life, to realize we can all learn from each other, no matter how much work we have done, and no matter how successful we get, and no matter how many people we're in charge of helping in what our business is that we're doing, that we can always learn from other people. I feel like that's so important for people to understand.
For me at the time, and the reason I keep telling that part of the story is that I felt power in that moment, because here's
Yes,
somebody who's mentoring me. And yes, it's not that the things that we're saying have never been said before.
right.
We're not really saying anything new or groundbreaking, but can you say it in a way that can hit people the way that they need to hear it?
Exactly. Exactly. And it's so nice to be validated in that way. I mean, it really does feel good. Wayne Dyer said it so beautifully. He goes, I love it, when, and I'm paraphrasing here, but I love it when people tell me how great I am and how much they enjoy my talks and how wonderful I am. He goes, I love it. I don't need it, you know, and that's the big distinction. And I loved it so much when he said that, because I feel like it's so important for us to understand that even though we may not get those adulations from some people, doesn't mean we're any less valid, but it does feel good to have it.
Hmm. After the whole thing happened with Matt Rife, another group that I'm in, somebody said, it's great that you had this happen, and like it really helped to validate you and it gave you all these opportunities, but just understand the power in this is you, not Matt. The power is
Right.
you.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's still, I'm still trying to internalize that
Yeah.
because, right? Who am I? And somebody said to me, you're the cut the shit lady, right? And I can't remember where I was. And I was like, oh, I can live with that. Yeah.
Yes, you are. And I agree that it is very true. You are the one that put that out there into the ether. And then spirit's like, okay, you've asked for this. So I'm going to show you this really cool way that I'm going to make this happen. That's just going to be like so mind-boggling for you. And it's just it's such a cool story. I love it. So I mean, like, I love it so much. So when you write your next book, you're going to put that in there, right? About this whole thing with Matt Rife and how it just was such a huge catalyst for you.
That is, so I've written, those are like some social media posts about manifesting because I think people think that it's so magical and that it's unobtainable.
Right.
And it really is not. And I'm sure
It,
like you and I could probably tell a million stories together about like where your mind is blown
yeah.
because that was just small. That, I mean, I shouldn't say that's a small thing, right? It had a huge impact.
Yeah.
And I've had so many other experiences that I tell people. So my cousin, she online, she does she reads books and then rates them for a living or as a hobby, I should say. And I had her read my book and she was like, I don't believe in that stuff. And so if I didn't know you, then I would think that that was complete bullshit. Right. But
Instead of cut the shit, it would be complete bullshit.
and like
That's
that's
so
the
funny.
question. Will subsequent books still have the word shit in the title? I don't know. There have been some things that, we won't put your book on the shelf or whatever, and you
Huh.
get to wonder does it hold you back somehow? But
Maybe the next book
it
could be
gets to
holy shit because of all of the beautiful things that have happened. I mean, you'll figure that out when it's time, but it's really cool. I'm excited for you for that next book because I feel it like already, like on the pages. I feel it for you. So I'm super excited for you.
oh, thank you. That's the kick in the butt that I needed, D, to start putting stuff back on paper.
Yeah. Well, I think you know half of it already, really. I mean, it's already written. You just haven't put it on the paper yet. That's how I
It
feel
has
right
to be
here in this
formal.
moment. So,
Well,
yeah,
thank you. I appreciate it.
you're very welcome.
It's definitely a lot of work, but it's something I never thought that I'd actually be able to do. And you know what? I kind of regret, like, my dad died before it was actually published. And so I wish in this human life he could have seen that,
Yeah.
you know.
But being who you are, you know that he's seeing it anyway.
Oh, for sure. Yes.
Yeah.
And
It's
I'm
it's a
and
it's just a different relationship because both of my parents are crossed over as well. And it's just a different dynamic. It's so much fun because, first of all, you have access to them whenever you want to. It's not like you have to wait for them to be answer the phone or anything like that. You can just have this chat. And sometimes they come through and give you all this beautiful information and, like put you in check sometimes. Sometimes my dad is the one. He'll show up sometimes and be like, baby girl, and tell me some stuff.
not the shit.
Right, cut the shit. Exactly. So it's really it's different, it's different than a physical relationship, but it's so incredible. I highly recommend it to have those spiritual connections and information exchanges with your loved ones that have crossed over.
One of the best things that I learned is that they don't have their ego anymore. So a lot of the things that may have impacted your relationship or your ability to communicate with them when they were here on earth are no longer there. So people will say, oh, my dad and I didn't get along. Well,
Mhm.
he understands things from a different perspective now, so your relationship is different.
It is. And that's the way it was for me or is for me, because my parents were really super Pentecostal and there was a lot of family dynamics and everything. And so we weren't really close when they crossed over, actually. So the new dynamic between us is like there's none of that judgment, there's none of the BS, there's none of it. It's just all love. And it's incredible. Like it's transformational is what it is.
I think it's eye-opening, right? And that's what you and I are here to educate people about, is what the reality is.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned in the beginning of our conversation about when you were becoming more acquainted with your ability of mediumship, that you had a lot of fear around it. If there's someone listening today that is at the very beginning of their journey into mediumship, what would you say to them about that fear?
I think it's like anything, that the more you do it, the more that fear will dissipate. So practice, practice, practice is what I would say. Find a group of other people, because you'll see that you're not the only, everybody is afraid of it. It's not like anybody says, I'm great at this, unless they're a narcissist. So we all have doubts, and that's normal. It's our ego stepping in to try to protect us from
Yeah,
experiences that might be disappointing or whatever. So we need to be able to move the ego aside and say, yes, it's scary, and I'm going to do it anyway.
right.
um what I didn't know is that everybody has the ability to do this. It's just a matter of, I explain it like we all can play football if we really wanted to, but only like the Tom Brady's of the world have enough skill to be able to do it professionally and really make money at it. But we all could do it. So what I would tell people is that you have a natural ability to do it. So get out of your head as far as, am I supposed to be doing this, or am I good at it, or whatever. You do have to practice to get better. And I would highly recommend that you find a mentor and or a group of other people that you can have these discussions with, so you can see everybody's afraid of it. Everybody's at a place where they are unsure. Am I making
Yeah.
this up, or am I any good at this? And you get by with a little help from your friends. You really do need a group of people. That would be my recommendation.
Yeah. I feel that is very important as well. It's so difficult when you're doing it on your own. I learned a lot of stuff on my own, and it's so much easier when you have like minds that you align with that can help you, feel like you're not going crazy and that, it is normal because you do feel weird. I mean, I actually made myself, I'm a wire worker, and I actually made myself a crown that has weird on it. I made myself a weird crown because I'm like, I was being called that all the time, and it felt so degrading to me. And
Yeah.
then I started going, you know what, I am weird, I know that I'm different than pretty much everybody, as we all are. We're all our own individual selves, but sometimes we like to think we're like all, but we're not. So I was like, I wear my weird crown proudly. I started saying that a lot. And then I was like, well, then I should totally have a weird crown. Why don't I have one? So I made myself one.
Oh, I hope yours has pretty jewels.
It has
I
yeah.
you know the it's I hope it's super blingy. We
It does have
you
some crystals on it.
it needs to. I think that because nobody really wants to talk about this, that in the general population, not a lot, and we don't realize how many people are really into it. So privately, when people find out you do it, I do have people kind of message me in the back end and ask me questions, because they don't want everybody else to know that they're into it. So there's a lot more people that are open to it than we initially thought. But if people like us, who are these trailblazers who will go into public and say that they do it, then it brings other people to us who don't have as much courage to be able to do that too. So we can encourage other people. silently or have them join us, but there's a lot more people than everybody thinks.
Yeah, it's true. And I feel like that
We're
number is
raising
growing.
conscious.
Yeah, raising
Mm-hmm.
the consciousness. Absolutely. It's such a beautiful thing. And I feel like it's so needed right now, like elevating the vibration of our planet right now. I feel like with all the weird things that are happening, that we really need that a lot, So when we can see that there are more and more people jumping on board and expanding this energy is to me is just so beautiful and so important.
Especially on the East Coast. I mean, you and I are on the East Coast, but you go over to Arizona and everybody's into it, in Las
Yeah.
Vegas and California, they're all open to it. But here we're working to expand that as well. See, our little silent army.
You're not so silent anymore, though, right? We're putting out books like Cut the Shit. Come on, people.
That's
Now
right.
is the time. Let's go.
Can you be spiritual and swear? You damn straight we can.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm such a potty mouth. I have to be mindful sometimes. I'm like, oh, I gotta watch that. But do I really? It's a word. I mean, and that's brings us back to that no judgment on the other side, because my dad, when he was walking around on this planet, one of the things he loved to say is it lack of intelligence or lack of vocabulary that makes you talk that way? Very judgmental, no tolerance at all for the cuss words. And then
Mm-hmm.
now he's not like that. And I'm a potty mouth. Like I said, I'm a total potty mouth. So my dad was always seems to show up on my left side. And one day he came and he actually used the word shit. And I remember stopping and turning my head and going, did you just say shit, Dad? Like, what? Like, you don't talk that way. But now he knows it's just a word. We put the meaning to the word.
We put the energy into that. Yes.
Yeah,
Spirit doesn't care. Mm-hmm.
that's right. So it's so cool. Well, so we've talked about your book, we've talked about your journey, we've talked a little bit about your therapy. So you combine these all, or do you do these in separate, like do you have them kind of divided up into categories, or is it like all together?
Well, I've been seeing the same clients, some of my clients I've been seeing for 20 years. Right now I'm in the process of, so I had my larger business where I had other people under working for me, and I closed that up about a year and a half ago. And right now I just have it down to me because I really had to listen to my soul and said,
Yes.
I wasn't enjoying myself anymore. I find myself, I had to listen to my body, and my body was, every time I'd go to work, be like, ugh, it's too heavy for me now. I don't want all these people working for me. I just want to be me.
Yeah.
And the other piece was taking health insurance. I was seeing people with their health insurance, and so I have people that I've been seeing with their health insurance for 15, 20 years. And I'm really looking to phase that out because there's just so many rules around that. And there's so much work that I have to do to bill and chase payments. And I can only get paid what the insurance company says I can get paid.
Right.
So the answer to that is when I'm now taking new clients, I still, again, the work that I do has always been me. It just has that spiritual component to it. So I, instead of calling it counseling, I have to call it, mentoring or coaching. Because if
Yeah.
you call it counseling, then there's other legal rules that there's things that you have to do with that. So it's the same service. It's still me. I'm not accepting health insurance for those. This is self-pay. And um, so now if anybody is new, then they have to be self-pay. There are separate services if you want a mediumship reading or an angel reading or an oracle reading, and you want that type of, specifically that type of guidance. So that is a separate service, but the mentoring itself is, and like, the transformational services is all the same service.
Okay. Awesome. That's so cool. And you have a website where people would reach you, or how do you have people find you?
I, I do. Thank you for asking. Yeah, it's my name. It's Becc Nelson, BECC Nelson.com.
Okay. And I will drop that link in the description box. Is there anything else you would like to share with us or tell us about, or anything before we close out today?
So my goal for the new year is to provide exactly what we were just talking about, to be able to provide more of an atmosphere for people to come together. and to have that be a safe place. I ran a group based on my book, which I'm going to rerun. And so it's, cut the shit. It's the group, the experience. And the last time I ran it, we had 9 people in there, and they all overwhelmingly said that they wanted an opportunity to be able to continue to interact with one another after the group was over, because they really liked just that atmosphere, being able to talk to each other openly and have the similar experiences. They have the same energy. So that is my goal for 2025, is to provide more experiences like that for people, both on Zoom, on my property. My husband and I are working on building a labyrinth in our yard. We had it's a 60-foot circumference area that we're going to build a labyrinth for some meditative space. So that's our goal for 25.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Do you have a goal time frame in 2025 that you're going to be able to open that?
Well, I think we're going to start off with see, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. Our property is a horse farm, and it's also historic. It was built in the 1700s, and so much work that we need to do to the back part of the barn, the house, the property, to make it so that it's inhabitable. But we can't really do anything until the spring. So I think we're gonna, I think, work on the labyrinth first and bring the energy of that, and then people can come and then I do some sound healing things. So I think we're going to start off with some small experiences, and probably have to bring in a porta potty or something, because there's no bathrooms back there. So I
Yeah.
don't have a specific date in mind yet. Plus, the town has to not be wigged out that people are driving that are going to drive here. But if you build it, they will come. So I don't have a
That's
specific date. My husband and I we're going to start building the experiences, and we need the resources. So again, we're back to, I need the resources, please.
the universe will clear the way, right?
Oh, well, another story about, that is, so I told you my home is historic, and we have 4 buildings. The main house that I'm in right now was in bad need of a paint job. And of course, nobody wants to touch it because it's lead. And there's, 250 years worth of layers of paint on there. And it's been white forever. My husband and I, we really need to have somebody paint the house. We were trying to do it ourselves. It's overwhelming, and we really wanted it to be a different color. So I just put it out there. We just need the resources to be able to have our house. So right now, we found somebody. The universe brought us somebody. We've got 2 sides of the house done, and it's now green. It's a sagey green, and he's gonna come back in the spring and do the other 2 sides. So again, that's how it works.
Yeah,
That
that
doesn't mean it
sounds
didn't cost
beautiful.
money, but
That
it
sounds
will work.
amazing. I love it so much. So, well, thank you, Beck, for being my guest today. I love this conversation. I love everything about it. I love what you do. I love your book, and I'm so excited for you to bring your next one to the world as well. Never know how that is going to come forward, and all of the amazing synchronicities, because you seem to bring in these like really cool catalysts for yourself. So it's going to be really interesting I'll have to have you back, is what is going to have to happen. I'll
Oh,
have
I
to have
love
you
it.
back so that we can talk about this again and be like, what mind blowing stuff happened this time? So we'll plan on that, because I know that's going to happen. So very cool.
Well, thank
So
you for putting that energy out there. Hey, thank you.
yes, you're
I
very
appreciate the
welcome.
opportunity to be able to speak to your audience. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you. Well, they're your audience too now. They're going to find you and follow you and get your book and all of the things. So thank you again. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today on this amazing journey through this incredible conversation. I appreciate each and every one of you so much. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And as always, I love you all, and I'll see you on the next one.